Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome, Mr. Erekose. How are you doing today?
Hello. How's everybody doing?
Well, I saw your wee video just a few minutes ago, and of course, you did point out that you were away to a call. But of course, being as we're both werewolves, we neither suffer from nor can transmit COVID-19, can we? Exactly, so.
Yeah, right.
That's one of the advantages, the being up all night in a full moon is a bit of a pain in the backside, but the rest of it's okay.
Right. That's because the World Health Organization. There was a thing going around on social media. The World Health Organization deemed that that canines weren't capable of contracting the COVID-19 virus, right? Yeah. And so they ordered all the dogs released from quarantine, and then it ends with the final sentence of, "To be clear, who let the dogs out?"
Yeah. Yeah, I did see that. Who?
World Health Organization.
That's exactly who. Yep. Give me time, I'll catch up.
No worries.
Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's just crack on. I have been. Well, I was intrigued by a tweet this morning by none other than Tracy Keogh.
Yeah.
Who, of course, exactly a year ago, we met.
Yes.
The Melbourne Conference Centre.
Yes.
A year ago to this day, as it were. The Saturday. Yeah.
Yep.
It might not be the exact date, but it's near enough, isn't it?
Right.
And so yeah. Hi everybody, Linda, Julie, Cherie. So anyway,
I think I have a picture of that actually. Let's see here.
Mm-hmm. Can you share it on your screen? Can you?
Oh, if I can find it, I can. There's Raleigh.
I can get the picture up.
You got the picture? Okay, yeah, you go ahead. Because the one I have just has me and Drizzen and Knight Rider in it. Doesn't have the full shot with Tracy.
Let me just do this very, very quickly then. Let me just, because otherwise let me remove that from the stream for now. Let me have a look for the picture, because it should be here somewhere. Let's have a look in this. Let's have a look in pictures. And let's have a look. I think you in that group photograph with all of them.
Right.
I think I've just got the one with you and Steve Drizzen.
And Laura in the background. Yeah.
No, so we'd have to. Not even with Laura in the background. Just you and Steve Drizzen. I did. Yeah.
Her out. So
I'm apologizing.
It would be on Tracy's Facebook.
Yeah. Anyway, we were. I was watching that. I read it, and it directed us to the viewers to an article, and so here we go. Basically, these are articles about the legal ethics of Kaczynski, O'Kelly, and Kratz.
Right.
So anyway, first up,
or the lack thereof.
Well, exactly. First up, let's do this. Let's add this to the stream. Let's make it full screen layout, and let's do this. There we go. Here's the first. Here's what the tweet related to. So it's what happened to Michael O'Kelly after making a murderer. So I'll let you do the reading if you like.
Here it is.
Oh, you've got it. I'll come back. Come back to StreamYard. You found it.
Let me real quick.
Yep.
Let me just I don't have to give off anybody's personal Facebook information.
Yeah, I know.
And it'll be good that I have a copy of this because I don't know why I didn't already. So. All right.
Yes, somebody's put. Look at. Yeah, exactly. And I told the dude it was the Kose wrecking crew tie today, and he claims not to have got the memo, but
Hey, I'm representing Avery Salvage here, but
yeah, okay.
You know.
Okay.
All right, so let's do that. Get down here. Okay, now I can share it with you.
Excellent.
Add that to the stream.
Yeah.
There it is, folks. That's in Melbourne at the Melbourne Convention Center. The guy on the left there is David Rudolph. Some of you may recognize him. Some of you may recognize this ugly guy here, Drizzen, Nyrider, and Tracy Keogh. And it was thanks to Tracy Keogh that I got to go backstage and meet all these folks. So that was another thing, she's a very, very passionate supporter of both guys, and she's tremendous.
Yeah, and she'll probably give you what for sharing her photograph, but never mind.
So,
okay. Thanks. Cheers, Tam. Thanks for that. So we'll just dip on to that that article. Here we go. Just mute. No, I'm not.
No, you just go to change your tab. There you go.
There we go. So, So there's the title, and this was what Tracy Keogh tweeted about this morning. I saw it this morning, and it related to this article. So anyway, I'll let you do the honors if you would, please, and give it a read through for us.
Okay. Hold on, let me pull up. There we go. Just wanted to. All right. Okay. Most of Netflix docuseries Making a Murderer spends its time looking at Stephen Avery's trial for the murder of Teresa Halbach. Falsely imprisoned for 18 years, Avery was exonerated and filed a civil lawsuit against the erroneous conviction. I love that they used the word erroneous.
Yeah.
Schimmel used that word. Anyway.
Yeah.
As the case progressed, a young woman named Teresa Halbach disappeared, and immediately police suspected Stephen Avery. When a statement from Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey, turned into a confession that he helped Stephen Avery kill Halbach, Dassey's public defender hired Michael O'Kelly to help him find out information about Brendan Dassey. Michael O'Kelly was a known expert on cellular technologies, being called in to help clarify technical points made by a defendant. Michael O'Kelly was also known for taking his role as a cell phone expert further than just making statements about the technology in trials. In 2012, he was kicked out of a case for visiting the defendant even after it had been found his testimony wouldn't be needed.
He likes to insert himself, doesn't he?
Right. He seems to like to do that.
Yeah.
So it's easy to see how Michael O'Kelly, expert and unofficial investigator, might be helpful to helping Len Kaczynski, Brendan Dassey's public defender, get a reliable statement from Brendan without having to go through the normal channels.
Well, I think that's slightly tongue-in-cheek, don't you?
Yeah, right. Since being brought up in Making a Murderer, a lot of people have been wondering who Michael O'Kelly is and what he's done since Dassey's conviction. In 2001, the Sacramento Daily Recorder ran an article about Michael O'Kelly. In short, the article explained how O'Kelly was one of a dozen elite practitioners of a truth-detecting technique, SCAN, S-C-A-N.
Yes.
Really, truth detection would be. Okay. Which relied on exploiting linguistic deviations in statements in the article, O'Kelly claims his technique is more dependable than a polygraph. An example of his technique is that if one were to say, when I was a kid, then that person was probably molested. Also, if you say the number 3, you're probably lying. Okay,
it reminds me of
all
Jim
kinds
Ray.
of sense right there. Oh, it's so clear now.
You know,
Jeez.
it reminds me of Jim Bray and his. I could tell Stephen was guilty purely by the look in his eye.
We still had another paragraph there, buddy.
Did we?
Believe so.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry, yes.
Presumably, Michael O'Kelly continued offering his services as a human lie detector to various defense firms, somehow ending up on the radar of Len Kaczynski, who hired him to help with his murder suspect, Brendan Dassey. Brendan had become implicated in the murder of Teresa Halbach when his young cousin, Kayla Dassey, claimed he had confessed to her. At the time, Brendan was 16. Later, under oath, Kayla said she had been lying about the confession. After Kayla spoke to investigators about Brendan's possible involvement in Teresa Halbach's murder, Mark Wiegert and Tom Fassbender got a second statement from Brendan. Mark Wiegert was a detective with Calumet County, neighbor to Manitowoc County. Calumet had taken over the investigation to avoid any appearance of conflict that might arise because Stephen Avery had a civil suit against them. But yet there they were.
Yes.
Tom Fassbender was a special agent with the Federal Department of Justice. This witness interview conducted on March 1st, 2006, quickly turned into a confession. It was never a statement. It was never an interview. But anyway, according to statements made to the two investigators, Brendan came home from school, helped rape and murder Teresa Halbach, and helped his uncle dispose of the corpse. It's important to note that Brendan Dassey was in special education classes at the time, and was interviewed without the presence of his parents or any school officials. Len Kaczynski, Brendan's public defender, was aware of this confession when he was appointed. Before ever meeting with Brendan, Kaczynski held a press conference where he stated, "We have a 16-year-old who, while morally and legally responsible, was heavily influenced by someone who can only be described as something close to evil incarnate."
I think we all remember that one, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I do.
Yeah.
Because it's also the one where he walks up to the camera and he starts talking and he stumbles.
Yeah.
And just like some prima donna actor or something, he's like, "Oh, you know what? Let me start again." And he literally just starts from the beginning of his thing again. And you know, but it was live. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyways, but that whole thing just smacked to me of like, this guy doesn't care anything about his own grandeur.
Yeah.
This made it clear that Kaczynski's approach to Brendan's defense was to admit guilt. While on the surface it seemed as though this may be a smart move for Brendan, if he admitted guilt and testified against Stephen Avery, he would see a reduced sentence for his own crimes, especially considering his mental handicaps. However, the O'Kelly's conduct called into question. In order to get a more clear idea of what has happened, Len Kaczynski had Michael O'Kelly interview Brendan Dassey to help clear up the inconsistencies in Brendan's statement to investigators.
Like that worked well.
Yeah. It just created a whole new set of facts.
Yep.
Or claims.
Yep.
Immediately prior to interviewing Brendan Dassey, O'Kelly arranged a selection of photographs on a table. Photos of Teresa Halbach, a picture of her at church, a blue ribbon like the one memorializing her outside that church, and more gruesome pictures such as her burnt bones recovered in Stephen Avery's fire pit. With this display set up, O'Kelly brought Brendan Dassey into the room and showed him a form. This form is brought up in Making a Murderer, but the legal implications of Brendan filling it out are glossed over.
So we've got actually the form there.
Yeah, there's the form.
The beginning of it.
Got him filling in the blanks, basically.
Yeah.
He actually, and when Brendan didn't fill it out the right way, he yelled at Brendan or scolded Brendan.
He just said, "I can't help you."
Yeah. Well,
I'm
in a
here to help
scolding way.
Yeah.
In a very scolding way.
Yep.
Yeah, but anyways, it was so yeah, that form. I mean, Brendan didn't have anybody looking out for him.
Yeah.
Not until Stephen and Laura came along. Brendan didn't have anybody looking out for him. Well, his mom was, but I mean, legally in court, he had nobody looking out for him, and it's sad. Yeah, okay. The lawyers he got for trial, they were pretty good. If Travis hears me talk bad about them, he gets all huffy and he starts getting all pissy with me.
Frumgen and Edelstein.
But they were decent. They did a fairly competent job of what they were, the way they got Brendan up on the stand, and the way their prep of Brendan must have been great, because Brendan held up against the prosecution. So I'll give them their credit where it's due. They did some good things.
Oh yeah.
Eventually. But what Brendan had to begin with that guy who was related to the Hallbox and then Kaczynski, he was sunk before he ever got started, and yeah.
I think the first guy was called Cegelski, wasn't he?
Yeah,
and he had to
recuse himself because he was a family member of the Hallbox.
Yeah.
But before leaving, he basically waived Brendan's right to have like the evidentiary hearing to prove that the state had enough evidence to proceed against him, right?
Yeah.
He waived that. And just so that's, it's just when you think about all the ways he was failed by his lawyers in the beginning, it's just it's unconscionable what happened to Brendan Dassey, and the fact that we've had, I don't know, the on-bank majority judges just really pissed me off.
Yep.
The fact that they thought what they were doing was a good thing. All right. Which one?
You want to start from the form?
Yeah, the form asked Brendan if he was sorry or not for what he did. Notable is that both options end in the phrase "what I did," which can be construed as an admission of guilt. So if Brendan Dassey filled out either option on this form, it could be viewed as contributing to the narrative of the confession. Right.
Let's just look at that. Let's look at that.
It's first. A damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Yeah. Right.
Choose the following option. Choose which following option applies for you. Then write your first name inside one of these boxes. Right. I am very sorry for what I did, or I am not sorry for what I did.
Right.
If you are truly sorry for what happened, please explain why you're sorry for what you did. I promise I will never do this again. Signed.
Exactly. It's all about making somebody say they did something, and it doesn't allow for them to say they didn't. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. Well, it's similar in many ways to Wiegand and Fassbender. They never at any time allowed Brendan to argue,
Right.
And one of the things about the control question is that it proves that his will was overborne.
Right.
Anyway, sorry. Next paragraph.
What is most interesting is that O'Kelly's form asks Brendan if he is sorry. Apologizing for an action is not only enough to demonstrate guilt, but culpability. Not only would Brendan be saying he did it, he would know it was wrong.
Yeah.
This completely eliminated any ability for Len Kaczynski to argue his client's mental handicaps were enough to warrant exculpating him of his crimes, and meant that the one strong piece of leverage the defense could have was taken away by themselves.
Exactly.
By themselves. Yeah, basically. Later in the interrogation, Brendan was shown the results of his earlier polygraph test. While this test was officially inconclusive, was it officially inconclusive?
Well, O'Kelly told him that, didn't he?
That's what O'Kelly said. That wasn't officially.
He passed with flying colours, didn't he?
Officially, he passed in flying. Yes, exactly. Yeah. O'Kelly told Brendan that it demonstrated he was lying when he claimed innocence. That is, O'Kelly lied and said Brendan was caught lying, despite there being no evidence that Brendan's statement of innocence was false. It can be seen that Michael O'Kelly's interrogation of Brendan Dassey and this form are the most clear evidence that as Brendan's currently, as of January 2016, pending appeal alleges, Len Kaczynski offered ineffective ineffective counsel or ineffective assistance of counsel.
Yes.
So Michael O'Kelly, after making a murderer, with the help of O'Kelly, Brendan Dassey was convicted and sentenced to life in prison for the rape and murder of Teresa Halbach. Since that case, Michael O'Kelly has continued to act as an expert witness. A lot of the press around him has been due to his high fees for services, which are rarely used in the actual trials for which they are rendered. That's interesting.
Nice work.
So what he's doing most prosecutors or most lawyers that are hiring him to help them figure things out are realizing that his methods aren't going to be very acceptable in court, or at least they worry about bringing them into court, and so they don't do it very often. So that's very interesting. In 2010, O'Kelly was listed as one of the defense experts witnesses in the now infamous Casey Anthony trial, although he never gave testimony. In 2011, Michael O'Kelly, billing himself as a forensic cell phone data consult, was paid $24,304 by the state of Illinois as a defense expert in their case against Christopher Coleman, who was sentenced to life in prison for murdering his wife and 2 sons. O'Kelly's testimony was not used. In 2012, Michael O'Kelly, now using the nickname Cell Tower Mike, was paid $102,994 by the state of Texas as a defense expert in a case against Ricky Cummings, sentenced to death. O'Kelly was never even called to testify in this case, and the state was unable to recoup their expenses paid to O'Kelly. Initially, O'Kelly had been hired to examine cell phone records, but billed the county for 14 visits to the Cummings, actions which eventually got him removed from the trial and contributed to Cummings seeking retrial. So instead of doing his job researching the telephone records like he was supposed to be doing, he was going and visiting the defendant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, he's an idiot. Wow. And is it any wonder, folks, that nobody wants this guy to testify at trial? Because they don't want him to start blubbing on the stand, you know? Anyway. See, Michael O'Kelly now in 2018. In March of 2015, O'Kelly was a speaker at a conference held by the Nebraska Criminal Defense Attorneys Association. There he presented on the topic of cellular forensics. The most recent information available about Michael O'Kelly is his involvement in a murder trial in Michigan. There, he is charging what the judge referred to as one of his highest fees ever paid for an expert by the prosecuting county. The highest fees ever paid by that prosecuting county. Interesting.
Yeah.
Wonder what the number is.
I think that's the end of that article, actually, to do with O'Kelly, which I thought was quite interesting because it's you think to yourself, yeah, that guy was a complete idiot, but he's not that daft.
No, well, he's certainly looking out for himself.
Yeah,
really good at that.
Yeah. So anyway, you ready with? To put you in the picture, I tried to find these. The Sacramento Daily Recorder was quoted as being an article that had done an article. Had done an article about O'Kelly and his scan technique.
Right.
But I wasn't able to get it.
Find it.
I wasn't able to get that. What I did manage to find as an alternative, which I think is even better, is this. So hopefully I've got them in the right order because I had to set them up first. So let's see if we can do this. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. There we go. This is an article January 7th, 2016 by Brian Fornan. Would you agree with the pronunciation? Brian Fornan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Fornan, yeah.
Yep. Okay, take it away.
Okay, so the latest rage is in Netflix binge watching is the documentary Making a Murder. If you haven't been engaged in a digital detox program over the last month or so, then you are likely aware of its existence. My wife and I just finished it up last evening. If you haven't watched it, you really should. It is quite compelling. It will only take you roughly 10 hours if you do it in one sitting. I'll wait here until you get back. Okay, great. Pretty compelling stuff, huh? Now I have my own views about the cases, the documentary, how it makes me feel about the system, etc. In addition to watching the series, I've also spent some time on the internet reading about the underlying case and things that were left out, etc. But I'm not going to get into a bunch of that on this blog because, strictly speaking, even the law of lawyering doesn't encompass many of the topics worth discussing. On the broader issue, I will say this. I guess.
So,
go ahead. I guess I have no doubt that there was more to the prosecution's case. There was more to the prosecution case presented to the jury than was presented during the documentary. I don't think there'd be very much more.
Well, yeah, keep going. This
would have to be true given the length of the trial versus the length of the documentary. I will say that even before scouring the web to read articles to reward myself for staying unspoiled during the run of watching the show, I found it fascinating on reflection that almost none of what we saw and what was explored in the documentary had anything to do with what, if any, motive the prosecution offered for why the accused would have murdered the victim. Wow, that was a mouthful.
It was.
Should have maybe reworked that sentence a little bit there. But anyway, okay. Concurrently, though, there also was no exploration of what, if anything, the defense lawyers said.
In the middle there.
I'm trying to find it again.
Sorry, yeah. Just below the middle.
Spoiled. Okay, I found it fascinating on reflection that almost none of what we saw and what was explored in the documentary had anything to do with what, if any, motive the prosecution offered for why the accused would have murdered the victim. Concurrently, though, there also was no exploration of what, if anything, the defense lawyers said and did to exploit the notion that there seemed to be no motive for the commission of the crime. I think they were pointing that out pretty well. I don't know. If you have already watched the documentary series and want to learn just a bit more through articles that will certainly spoil you as to the current state of affairs are the subjects of the series. If you haven't watched, you could do worse than to read these three pieces here, here, and here.
Which we are doing.
Are we now? All right.
Well,
the popularity of this documentary and the issues it touches on does provide excellent fodder for occasional discussions of certain legal ethics issues. I really wasn't sure I was going to tackle. I wasn't sure I was going to tackle any of them here, but then I finally remembered somewhere between watching episodes 6 and 7 and last night's watching all of the final 3 episodes from where I knew the name of the lead prosecutor. I covered this 4-month suspension from the practice of law in my 2014 Ethics Roadshow. I won't pile on about the details of that because, at least at a surface level, it has nothing to do with the cases explored in the documentary. But I will give you this link that points to the story itself if you want to go and familiarize yourself.
Well, obviously that we're all familiar with Ken Kratz's.
Ken Kratz and the OLR and all that. Yep.
I haven't skipped anything, have I? If you want, no.
Okay, what I do want.
Sorry, yeah.
I'm sorry. What I do want to explore and see if I can do so in a way that doesn't truly spoil anything for someone who hasn't watched the series yet is an instance of conduct involving the prosecutor that seemed to me at the time I was watching to clearly have run afoul of the lawyer ethics rules. Can
I just quickly go and shut that door? My wife has come down completely unbothered about the fact that she's put the washing machine on and just left the door wide open. I will go and shut the door. 2 seconds, please.
Mm-hmm. There's a memorable press conference shown in episode 3 held by the prosecutor. You can read a transcript someone has made of the entire 3rd episode online just by ginning up a decent Google search, and what will get the transcript of the remarks at the press conference, and you will get a transcript. Dude, where's that door? In the Highlands? Let's take a look at the chat here.
Okay, sorry about that. I couldn't figure out how to turn the damn thing off, so I've just shut the door, okay?
Okay. Wisconsin, like most states, has and had at the time of the press conference an ethics rule governing a lawyer's ability to make certain public statements about a pending matter in litigation. Under the ABA model rules now and back then, the rule is RPC 3.6, conveniently titled Trial Publicity. Applicable to lawyers in civil and criminal cases alike, is broadly designed to prevent lawyers from making an extrajudicial statement that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will be disseminated by means of the public communication and will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. At first blush, the kind of statements made in the press conference would certainly appear to be statements that are extremely likely to materially prejudice not one, but 2 trials. However, RPC 3.6, however, goes on to make clear that despite the general prohibition, a lawyer is still permitted to make an extrajudicial statement about information contained in public record, which would mean that as long as a lawyer puts enough detail into a court filing, repeating those details in a press conference would not violate RPC 3.6. But lawyers who are prosecutors also have special duties under another ethics rule, RPC 3.8, and under the ABA model rules, there exists a provision, RPC 3.8, that reads as follows. Except for statements that are necessary to inform the public of the nature and extent of the prosecutor's action and that serve a legitimate law enforcement purpose, refrain from making extrajudicial statements, comments that have a substantial likelihood of heightening public condemnation of the accused, and exercise reasonable care to prevent investigators, law enforcement personnel, employees, or other persons assisting or associated with the prosecutor in a criminal case from making an extrajudicial statement that the prosecutor would be prohibited from making under Rule 3.6 or this rule. Now, if the rule like this had applied to the Wisconsin prosecutor, the press conference shown in episode 3 would have violated this rule about 6 ways from Sunday. Wisconsin, however, did not then and does not now have this rule in place. Wisconsin has specifically declined to follow the ABA on this topic. Thus, my initial instinct was wrong. Whatever else I may think about the decision to hold the press conference and to have made the statements that he made, and the New York Times article I linked above indicates that the prosecutor himself has said he regrets holding that press conference. As long as the same contents were in the publicity filed criminal complaint, then it would not have been an actionable violation of RPC 3.6 or 3.8 in Wisconsin. So basically, Wisconsin hasn't adopted that, so it didn't apply.
Yep.
So, approximately 30 other states, including Tennessee, do not have a provision identical to or strongly similar to RPC 3.8.
Sorry, they do have.
They do. Okay, yes, do have a provision. Okay, so approximately 30 other states, including Tennessee, do have a provision identical to or strongly similar to RPC 3.8. And thus, such a press conference by a prosecutor in those states would be potentially disciplinable offense. At some point, I will write a post about the troubling ethics issues raised by the acts and omissions of one of the lawyers for the minor defendant, whose arrest was part of the subject matter of the press conference, but not today.
Fortunately, that's exactly what he did. What were we? We were January the 7th, so 22 days later.
Right. Okay.
Sorry,
so
just to explain, this is part 2 of 3. There's 3 altogether. They're not that long.
All right.
Have a sip of your Dr. Pepper.
Wait, I need some more.
Are they running short?
It's empty.
Is everybody stocking up?
I haven't had trouble getting Dr. Pepper. Milk, on the other hand.
Yep.
Fortunately, I don't need toilet paper.
Yeah.
I suppose I could sell off some of what I have and probably make a mint, but I don't know.
I don't think recovering ethics. I don't think that's really such a good idea, dude.
No, I agree. I abhor these people that are going out and buying it up just so that they can personally make a profit off it. But no, mine's mine, and since everybody's acting like crazy people about toilet paper right now anyway, I'm going to hold on to what I got for the foreseeable future.
Well, who was it that alerted me to the fact? I think it was Hugh Fraser that alerted me to the fact that in Australia, one of the newspapers printed an edition of the newspaper and left 8 pages blank so that people could use that.
Damn, that's funny.
Anyway, sorry, let's get on with what we should be doing.
All right. 2 recent events have brought me back around to wanting to talk about ethics issues raised by this fascinating documentary. One event is public and absurd. The other event was semi-private and surprising, at least to me. As neither of the recent events are actually the thing I wanted to talk about a couple weeks ago when I wrote my first post about this documentary, I will try to dispense with them with relative speed.
Let me put the next paragraph up.
First, this story that made the rounds this week further cements the notion that the former prosecutor is really something else. While strictly speaking, it is hard to think of an ethics rule directly implicated by his letter to the prison. Oh, his letter to Stephen.
Yeah. To
the person he put into prison for murder, trying to cajole an admission of guilt so that he, the former prosecutor, can write a book revealing the true story. The mere act of writing such a letter certainly isn't a strong look for the lawyer. Perhaps the saddest aspect of it is the desperation of this was your absolute last chance to tell the truth and you blew it. But let me know if you change your mind because I'm probably still going to be interested. Approach to coercion. Yeah, he was. Kratz is a slimy one, isn't he?
Yeah.
Second, I found myself enmeshed in an interesting APRL list serve discussion when some lawyers who were taken aback at the disclosure made by Avery's former lawyer, Dean Strang, in an appearance on ABC's Nightline, that he worries that Avery might be guilty. A number of lawyers expressed belief that even with the passage of almost 10 years, it was bad for the profession for the lawyer to publicly express any such misgivings about a former client, particularly for as long as there are still folks pursuing proceedings to try to have the former client exonerated.
I mean, I must admit, I've always, I think Jerry Butin has always said yes, quite categorically. But you remember when Dean Strang says, "Well,
Strang did have a little while there where he was actually saying on TV that there was some doubt in his mind, possibly, but that he ultimately believed Stephen was innocent." But I remember there was a time, but I think even Dean realized that wasn't a good look for him, and he doesn't do it anymore. Okay, where were we?
I think it's round about the middle, just after having a client exonerated. I was a bit
taken aback for what I've now been able to figure out are three reasons. First, and the most embarrassing for me, because I didn't realize it until I had already weighed in on the listserv, was that I forgot that Tennessee's RPC 1.9 differs significantly from the ABA model rule approach in applying the exceptions for generally known information to both adverse use and disclosure of confidential information of the former client. Second, having watched all the documentary, he didn't seem to me
right in the middle.
He didn't seem to me to be saying anything in the Nightline piece that he hadn't already said in the documentary itself. Thus, the current disclosures would be merely repetitive of disclosures that presumably had to have been consented to by Avery for broadcast in the first place. The third reason, though, finally provides a segue into the original thing I wanted to talk about, given how detestable the conduct of at least one of the other defense lawyers in the drama appears. Strang came across to me as exactly the sort of lawyer you'd hope to have on your side.
Now, let's just start this paragraph so that you've got a bit more.
Right. The other defense lawyer is, of course, Len Kaczynski, the second court-appointed lawyer for Avery's nephew, Brendan Dassey. The notion that Kaczynski never was disciplined for the way he handled his representation of Brendan Dassey is exceedingly difficult to fathom. A lawyer's duty gets worse than that, Chief.
Yep.
He was convicted by a jury of harassing his own clerk and was supposed to do time. Anyway, so yeah, that's the tip of the iceberg, dude. Oh man. Anyway, the notion that Kaczynski, the lawyer's duty to be the client's zealous advocate is at its highest when the client is accused of murder. When the client in question is accused of murder. Add into the mix details such as the client is a juvenile with well below average intellect and social coping skills, and you'd expect the likeliest ethical failings to come from the lawyer crossing lines that shouldn't be crossed in the name of trying to protect their client. Right? Yeah. That's true. If you expected Kaczynski to cross lines here, you would expect him to have done it in a way to help Brendan, not hurt him. So anyways, yet Kaczynski now stands as an example of a lawyer managing to violate ethical duties to his client in the course of undertaking what appears to be the polar opposite of zealous advocacy. As we learned in the course of the documentary, Kaczynski spoke to the TV cameras, as shown in episode 4, before ever speaking to his client, and made a much more damning statement about his client than Strang can ever be accused of making about his former client, indicating that his client was morally and legally responsible for the murder. While that alone was unforgivable, it was not as impactful a transgression in the end as was his role, both active and passive, in coercing his own client into giving another confession to the police outside of his presence, which also managed to lead to an admissible telephone conversation between his client and his client's mother. And we all know that clip, folks.
Yep.
With all that being said, this story from The Guardian lays out much, if not all, of the detail necessary to take in something of the big picture of the problems with Kaczynski's performance. I certainly won't condone anyone who has harassed or threatened the man, as the article indicates has happened. And I agree with him 100% on that one, folks, by the way. We shouldn't be harassing these people, but we should only be making the truth smack them in the face.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be personally attacking or doing anything like that. So I agree with him on that point. Of course, cancer is awful, and thankfully the article reports that his is now in remission. But as to his explanations for his handling of the case, I'm not inclined to give him any more benefit of the doubt than he is afforded to his minor client. Well said there. Like that one. With all that being said, that article also happens to be the first time I've heard Kaczynski indicate that he was not aware at the time of the conduct and tactics of the private investigator that he hired. Oh, yeah. Sure, buddy. Kaczynski's portrayal of that private investigator as a loose cannon tees up an interesting discussion about a lawyer's obligations with respect to the conduct of such a non-lawyer assistant under RPC 5.3. So it seems there will be a part 3 on this topic in my future.
I must say I'm pretty impressed by this guy. What I find interesting is that he is somebody who I believe he's this guy is in Texas, and obviously he's been speaking with other lawyers, and they've been having a chat about the case, and they're actually expressing their own opinions about it. I think it's quite interesting. So anyway, let's here's the guy's name, Fornan, and here's the final episode by Brian Fornan.
Right. But before that,
yeah. So I'm not keeping an eye on the chat. Are you keeping an eye on the chat? I know.
Kind of, sort of there. Yeah.
Everybody behaving? Yeah. Good.
So I'm trying to share my screen, but you can't see that I'm trying to do that.
Oh, right. You want me to come back?
The cartoon that Miss Susan Sexton created of O'Kelly and Kaczynski.
Oh, you've got it. Right. Okay.
So I figured it'd be a good time to put it up and let everybody get a good
laugh. Absolutely. Let me do a little bit of this and a little bit of that. Come on, button. Be pressed, and I'll click on that one. And I'll click on that.
There it is. So this is a piece of artwork created by Susan Sexton, and I just think it's great. If you guys look here, down here is Pabst Blue Ribbon, folks, because you know the way. And O'Kelly's crying, and so obviously you have Len over here with the little cat slippers, saying, hey, Mike, don't you think it's time to switch brands? Obviously, because the blue ribbons were, So brilliant cartoon done by Miss Susan Sexton. So just thought we'd show that since we're here talking about that subject at the moment.
Absolutely. Okay. You ready? Have another swig of your Dr. Pepper, because you're on the home straight here, dude. You've done really well. And of course, as you said just before we came on air, that you haven't had a chance really to read through much of this.
No, I didn't get a chance. I woke up this morning and immediately had an emergency call I had to go react to. So.
And I mean, the thing is, just touching on that subject, I mean, if you're driving around because you have to go to a job, but it's not just setting up TVs; it's also all that home automation, and also to do with internet and stuff.
Well, I'm not like a network guru, but I understand how the cable comes in. I understand how the connections happen. And so I'm able to physically troubleshoot for our clients where the cables are coming in and where the problem is occurring. When it comes to things like network administration, I'm more out of my depth. But in terms of getting signal to a router, making sure the internet's coming in and troubleshooting those things, I'm well suited for those sort of things.
Yeah. Have you got your Dr. Pepper there?
Yeah.
Let's have a look.
Have a look. It's just a cup.
Put it up. Let's have a look. See what you've got on it.
Here.
Okay.
All right, fine. Here you go, folks. Dr. Pepper.
Oh, on a sec. I see the comments move just as I'm about to click on it. The comments move up one. So thanks, Jamie. Cheers.
All right.
Anyway, sorry, we're digressing. We're havering.
What's Linda K talking about? Hold on.
Free ad, yeah. Okay, you ready for the next part?
All right, next part.
Yep. And full screen. And a little bit of this. I think it's this one in the middle here. So click on that. There we go.
Okay. It has been a while since I last wrote about this topic, and getting around to finally writing this piece has been so frustrating and depressing for reasons that ought to be clear by the end of this post, that I am confident that I have no plans to return to it. Something tells me maybe something in the supporter community kind of pissed them off. I wonder. Anyways, we'll see.
No, I don't think it's the supporter community.
Yeah. All right. Let's see here. When I last left off, I was promising to come back and discuss issues arising under RPC 5.3 for lawyers regarding their responsibilities for non-lawyers that they employ or engage to provide them with assistance. Specifically, what I promised was that I would come back to the topic of Len Kaczynski and his post-hack efforts to deflect any blame for the way his private investigator handled a session with his juvenile client, Brendan Dassey, and to now say that he would not have hired the private investigator he hired, Michael O'Kelly, if he had known the investigator would engage in such conduct.
Let me put the next one up for you.
Setting aside the question of how believable that position is, the claim that he didn't know roughly, if not exactly what was going on to happen when he let O'Kelly at his client. Let's take a look at what his ethical responsibilities actually would have been. And for the record, setting aside the question I just set aside takes real doing in the first place when you remember the email exchanges between Kaczynski and the investigator that were detailed in the final episode of the series and that were used in connection with the brutal cross-examination of Kaczynski by Dassey's newest representation. Batch of lawyers, really?
Yes, yeah.
Gosh.
Well, you've got Robert Dvorak, Laura, and Steve. So yes, it's more than two. It's more than a couple.
It just seems disrespectful, but I don't know. Anyway,
Lawyers? I don't know.
Wisconsin's version SCR 20:5.3 of the relevant rule is patterned after ABA Model Rule 5.3 and provides, with respect to a non-lawyer employed or retained by or associated with a lawyer, a partner and a lawyer who individually or together with other lawyers possesses comparable managerial authority in a law firm shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that the firm has in effect measures giving reasonable assurance that the person's conduct is compatible with the professional obligations of the lawyer. A lawyer having direct supervisory authority over the non-lawyer shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that the person's conduct is compatible with the professional obligations of the lawyer, and a lawyer shall be responsible for conduct of such a person that would be a violation of the rules and professional conduct if engaged in by a lawyer. If the lawyer orders or with the knowledge of the specific conduct ratifies the conduct involved, or the lawyer is a partner or has comparable managerial authority in the law firm in which the person is employed, or has direct supervisory authority over the person and knows of the conduct at the time when its consequences can be avoided or mitigated, but fails to take reasonable remedial action.
Okay, so
hold on a second, folks. I need to go check on something that's happening outside my studio just real quick.
Sure. I'll just carry on. Well, in fact, what I'll do is I'll just quickly read that through again. Wisconsin's version of the relevant rule is patterned after ABA Model Rule 5.3 and provides, with respect to a non-lawyer employed or retained by or associated with a lawyer, A partner and a lawyer who individually or together with other lawyers possesses comparable managerial authority in a law firm shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that the firm has in effect methods giving reasonable assurance that the person's conduct is compatible with the professional obligations of the lawyer. B, a lawyer having direct supervisory authority over the non-lawyer shall make reasonable efforts to ensure that the person's conduct is compatible with the professional obligations of the lawyer. And C, a lawyer shall be responsible for conduct of such a person that would be a violation of the rules of professional conduct if engaged in by a lawyer. If 1, the lawyer orders or, with the knowledge of the specific conduct, ratifies the conduct involved, or 2, the lawyer is a partner or has comparable managerial authority in the law firm in which the person is employed, or has direct supervisory authority over the person and knows of the conduct at a time when its consequences can be avoided or mitigated but fails to take reasonable remedial action. Have you managed to make it back yet, dude?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, sorry. I was just reading through that little bit again. Okay, on you go. Take it away, buddy. It's just that the next paragraph relates back to what we've just read twice now.
So, to pare that down, the two parts most directly applicable to analyzing Kaczynski's obligations are B, C, and 1. And the portion of C and C2 applicable to a lawyer with direct supervisory authority over the person. So this is the part where I could walk through questions about what exactly ought to be expected of a lawyer who hires a private investigator or a consultant in terms of reasonable efforts to ensure that they will conduct themselves in a way that would be compatible with the lawyer's own ethical obligations. And those questions can be difficult ones to fully evaluate. And it is often easy to take shots at a lawyer with the benefit of hindsight to conjure up some additional things that could have or should have been done. And from there, I could undertake an examination of the likelihood that, especially because the whole O'Kelly interview of Dassey was a video recorded, that at some point, Kaczynski surely had to learn that what had happened and could have undertaken some sort of effort to try and remedy the impact on Mr. Dassey. But between having watched the documentary itself, having read this piece specifically about Mr. O'Kelly and who he was before and after these events, it's just not worth all the effort. There really cannot be any justification for Kaczynski's role in this farce. If nothing else would make it clear, then surely the nice photo of the document that O'Kelly put in front of Dassey, the self-interview and information survey, and the choices it offers should demonstrate that no one would learn anything from deconstructing this scenario to learn to fashion a way that this could have been done in compliance with the ethics rules.
Again, we've got that same form.
Or if that isn't enough, how about the fact that O'Kelly has known back then, before Kaczynski retained him, for being an adherent of something called SCAN that he considered to be more effective than a lie detector test. You should actually go read the original Sacramento newspaper article as well. But if you are pressed for time, the summary treatment of it by the Gazette review piece is pretty good.
And of course, I tried to get this article by the Sacramento Daily Recorder, but of course it's from well, as they say, it's from 2001. So
right.
I I think the actual newspaper is called the Daily Recorder, and it's in Sacramento.
Right.
And I believe Sacramento
they probably only have 2001. They probably only have those on the microfiche. They haven't digitized them yet, right?
And it's Sacramento, is that not in California?
Yes.
So not far from Crunch Island.
Not far.
So if you're ever across there,
I went up to San Jose recently.
Yeah.
And that takes about 5.5 hours.
Man, this is bizarre. I mean, it's like Sacramento might be in the same county, but it's in the same state, but it's huge distances, isn't it? You know.
Well, California's a big state.
Yeah.
Especially north to south.
Well, if you remember that as far as 11 states in America are concerned, 11 of the American states are bigger than the United Kingdom.
Right. Everything's bigger in Texas. Just ask Travis.
I'll take your word for it. No, it is. It's Texas is Texas not the biggest state of all?
No, I think Alaska is the biggest. But
well, that to me is just wrong. That should be just like a separate country, shouldn't it? You know.
Yeah. I don't know. Alaska's a pretty popular U.S. destination, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
In fact, my boss has gone dirt bike riding there once. So
he's gone what?
Dirt bike riding in the snow there.
Yeah, but in this. Oh yes, sorry, yes, ice speedway, yes, good. Okay. Sorry, let's.
It's more like off-road biking.
Yeah,
like moto.
Yeah.
But anyway,
quad biking. Yeah.
All right, so. In 2001, the Sacramento Daily Recorder ran an article about Michael O'Kelly. Well, it looks like you should be able to get it right there. Anyway, in short,
I clicked on it, and you trust me, I tried.
It wouldn't let you see it.
Yeah.
In short, the article explained how O'Kelly was one of a dozen elite practitioners of a truth detecting technique, SCAN, which relied on exploiting linguistic deviations in statements. In the article, O'Kelly claims his technique is more dependable than a polygraph. An example of his technique is that if one were to say, "When I was a kid," then that person was probably molested. Also, if you say the number 3, you're probably lying.
Huh?
Ugh. Well said. Ugh. Yeah, that's certainly more definitive than a lie detector test, which is measuring a person's body blood pressure and pulse and everything, right? Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Well, O'Kelly's ridiculous, and we all know that. So.
Yeah, I do remember. I watched an interview somewhere with Kratz where he talks about the fact that if he had the chance again, he wouldn't have done the press conference, which is all very well and big of him to say that. It's with hindsight, but he's already let the cat out the bag, so it doesn't matter a flying hoot what Ken Kratz says now. It's what he did then.
And is that even true? I mean, if he was back in the situation back then where he knew he had this weak case that the lawyers were going to be able to pick holes in the evidence because just because of the obvious reasons we've all gone over with all of the pieces of evidence. There's problems with all of it, huge problems with all of it. They knew that. They were in that situation. That press conference was a way for them to color the local opinion and get everybody on their side without before ever stepping into court. Would he sacrifice that again? Could he win the case if he didn't do it? I mean, I honestly wonder. So, I mean, yeah, it's all good and it's all good and well for him to say now, but meaningless, really. So,
Linda's asking about a tweet by Jerry Butin that says that yes, okay, the Wisconsin Court of Appeals, the state has been given an extra 21 days. Doesn't mean to say they have to take those extra 21 days. They don't have to. And I think that's what we were that we won about. That I think that's what he was saying. That, they don't have to take the 21 days, but they probably will.
They probably will. I mean, they're not eager to have to try to explain what the hell they did with those bones, folks. That is for them. They are not looking forward to arguing that with the appeals court because they realize how bad it looks for them right now. How they were denying these things at trial and how they ended up turning around and giving them to the family. They know this looks bad, and they don't want to have to try to argue and explain this. So they're gonna continue to they're gonna put it off as far as they can, I'm sure.
Yep. But as I say, I thought that was very interesting. Obviously, we had a little bit of repetition about the two different articles quoting this bit from the Sacramento Daily Recorder about this scan technique.
Right.
Scam technique, more like.
Yeah.
This whole idea that, a bit like Jim Bray, that he could tell that Stephen was guilty by the look in his eyes. Well,
Right.
So if you say the word 3, is it you say the word 3, you've been molested or something? I can't remember.
No. If you talk about your childhood, you've been molested.
Oh,
ridiculous.
If you say when I was a kid.
If you say when I was a kid, then yeah, you've been molested, or most likely it says. It's like you're talking in terms of most likely, and you're trying to tell me how you're more accurate than a polygraph. Yeah, dude, fail, epic fail.
It does seem very bizarre though that this Michael O'Kelly is able to go and make a what appears to be a rather lucrative career, and yet he very rarely appears in court, does he?
Right. Yes. Right. Getting all kinds of money and doesn't even have to show up in court. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, what on earth did he do that warrant him being paid $102,000 apart from 14 trips to the guy that he wasn't supposed to go and see?
Yeah.
But also, does it not raise questions of the people in charge? What the hell are they playing at, allowing that to happen?
Yeah.
Certainly does for me, anyway.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, yeah. Well, it's like that guy said. He's just shocked that Kaczynski has been able to walk away from this without any kind of scrutiny.
Yep.
All the things that he did, I mean, there's literally no scrutiny of it. And then we know what he did to his clerk, and we know that a jury convicted him.
Mm-hmm.
And then they just, good old boy system, nah, that's all right. We'll commute that sentence, big boy. You get yourself ready to be a public defender there.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to work. It's like, what the hell, dude? I mean, Wisconsin's got its priorities. Its politicians and judicial system have its priorities way the flip out of order. And hopefully that's going to change because it's a shit show right now. What happened with Kaczynski, it just proves what a freaking shit show it is over there.
Well, and also, as I say, the fact that according to the laws, throw the ethics out the window. Ken Kratz isn't interested in ethics, but the law actually allowed him to do that press conference.
Right, because Wisconsin hasn't adopted a rule like, what did he say it was? RCP 3.9?
Yeah. 8.9, an ABA rule or something?
Right. But because Wisconsin is one of the 20 states that hasn't, accepted that or made that part of their, rules. So obviously he wasn't bound by it, and he's allowed to get away with it. And I don't believe him. I mean, I think if he was back in that same position again, he would see he would understand that he had to do that. He had to color public opinion because Stephen's lawyers were going to create doubt. And so by doing that press conference was really the state's best chance of making this thing fly by coloring public opinion before anybody ever heard a single word in court. So shouldn't be able to color opinion in that way. Certainly not color public opinion like that. Should be completely unacceptable.
So DSOM
response is still coming. It's got an additional 21 days now to get in. but it's still on the way.
Which I think takes us to 17th of April.
It'll be just before Mammothon.
Yeah. So we get to we'll get the response. We might not necessarily get, because I believe Kathleen Zellner then has to give her, or maybe me doesn't have to, but can give a response to the state's response. Is that right?
I'm sorry?
It means that although we'll get the state's response,
we won't have.
We might not get Kathleen Zellner's, although I don't know that she has to give a
be able to respond quick enough. She might, I don't know. We'll see how quickly she responds to what the state has to say. But if she responds before Mammothon, then we can talk about it.
Okay. So how's plans going for Mammothon then?
Right now, well, I need to have a discussion with you. Your time just changed, right?
No, I'm going with the times that I was given.
Does it change? No. UK's time just changed, right?
No, it doesn't change until next weekend.
Next weekend? Another week?
It goes.
Well, we need to work out what your time availability is, because it's getting trickier with the fact that we've already all changed and you guys are behind. So it's just making it difficult to account for the time difference.
No, it's not. I already know. I can already work out exactly what my times are. They are 9 till. I think it's 9 till 12 on the Saturday, and I think it's something like 12 to 3 in the afternoon on the Sunday. And of course, with all this coronavirus going around, well, I mean, I might be back to going out and visiting people, but no, it's.
Yeah, see, I'm not any clearer on what your times are after that, because I don't know if you're talking about your time, Central Time. Like, I have no idea what you just said. You just said some times, but I have no way of how to apply that and what it means, and plus accounting for the time change that's going to happen next week, as you just said. That's what we got to kind of get that nailed down. Is what I'm getting at.
The last list that I saw,
right,
included like a half hour. It was something like a half 9 till half 12. But what it was based on was it was giving the Wisconsin times. It was Central Time.
Was it going to work for you?
So it was 3:30. Okay, so 3:30 Wisconsin time. When I am 6 hours ahead, is 9:30 my time, which is what I said right at the beginning.
Okay,
I've already calculated them.
Okay, so once again, my question is: okay, so you're happy with your slots?
Yeah,
I've that's it. Yeah. That's all we needed to know. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. All right.
God, it's like trying to get blood out of a stone. No.
Oh yeah. Don't even tell me, dude, about trying to get blood out of a stone.
It's impossible to do, and only annoys the stone. I know. Cheers.
Uh-huh.
So no, you've got some guests lined up.
I'm not talking about guests yet.
Yeah, but you told us last time you were lining.
You guys have to go find out where I said it before.
Can be done.
So,
yes,
I'll have a more proper announcement of guests. Yes, there is somewhere where you guys can go listen to who I currently have. But I'll do another announcement when I find out about a couple more guests that I'm looking to get on.
Here you go. Yes, certainly was.
I suppose it was, yeah.
And in fact, there was also a bill put forward by, I believe, somebody called Alan Lassie, and the bill was, and it was recommended that sorry,
to reintroduce the death penalty,
to the death penalty for proven murder cases using DNA evidence.
Right.
That was the wording of it. It was so blatant that it was aimed at Stephen Avery. It was ridiculous.
Right.
You know, when you've got the the year before, you've got the even Jean Couchet saying, can DNA evidence be planted? Can it be tampered with, etc.? And they're going to execute people based on that, you know?
Yeah.
It just struck me as being totally bizarre. And that was the reason why the trial was delayed until February of 07, wasn't it? Because they didn't want, Dean and Jerry didn't want the trial going ahead at the same time as people were going to the polls to vote for that.
Right.
And of course, it also explains, you know, some of Willis's behaviour. You know, I actually got a message once from Jerry Butin to say, yeah, you got to remember that the biggest problem with Patrick Willis is that he was up for re-election.
Right.
So of course, he bent over backwards to help
the prosecution and the county and stuff. Right. Right.
And also, it was interesting that it was in 06 that the new sheriff took over. You ever heard of a fella called Robert Herman?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when he took over.
I've heard of that fool.
Yeah. And do you know who he beat to become sheriff?
Andy Colburn.
Correct.
Yeah.
And it always struck me as being odd how in that first conversation I had with Herman, completely out of the blue, I hadn't asked anything at all about it. He said, well, I get on fine with Andy Colburn. And I'm like, what? And looking back now, you know, with the benefit of hindsight, and you know, I showed you that stuff about this the TV in this country, and it's on Netflix. I know it's a documentary, but it's really, really well worth watching. It's called Line of Duty. Mm-hmm. It's set in the West Midlands in down in England.
Oh yeah. The one you were sending me the other day that has Methadone Mick from Still Game.
Mm-hmm. And the guy that put together this Line of Duty was even asked if Methadone Mick, or in this case this fella, I think his surname was Farmer, mm-hmm. whether he was based on Brendan Dassey, because the similarities were incredible.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't know. I wonder. I don't know.
Yeah. And oh no, it's a documentary, but in the documentary, this guy Methadone Mick is gives a confession.
Oh, okay.
Which he then retracts.
Right. Oh, okay.
You know, so it was very interesting, but the whole point of Line of Duty, it's about a fictitious unit within the police force called AC-12, anti-corruption.
Right.
And of course, over in America, you have internal affairs.
Right.
And that made me wonder. There's often between the good cops and the bad cops that kind of friction.
I would suppose there would be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just made me
privy to those situations.
Well, it just made me wonder what did Herman mean when he said, you know, I don't have a problem with Andy Colburn.
Yeah. When unprompted, right? Yeah.
You know, I mean, look, probably, I would say it was simply a case of the fact that it's Andy Colburn that is mainly to blame. Him and Jim Link are the main two that are to blame for, you know, if you like, public outcry at having watched Making a Murderer. How many times did you see, if you typed in Making a Murderer, there would be cartoons about, you know, I've lost my keys, but it's okay. I rang the sheriff's department in Manitowoc and they came and found them and they were under the slippers and all that kind of stuff. You remember when Making a Murderer first came out? Mm-hmm. Yes. You know, and the cartoon with the planters and all that kind of stuff. So I'm just wondering if it was maybe that he was referring to, the fact that as far as he was concerned, Lenk and Colburn have made the sheriff's department look really bad.
Yeah.
And that's why he was saying, well, no, we get on fine. But as I say, to come out without I hadn't even asked that.
Yeah. To unprompted for him to have said that is odd. I agree. Yep. And don't forget the YouTube videos back from when Making a Murderer first came out. The the Manitowoc Framing Company, where it's like two guys acting like Link and Colburn and everything. It's hilarious. It's great. Check it out on YouTube, folks.
Yeah. The other one I liked was the
Manitowoc Cops or whatever. That was a good one.
Yeah, but there was also one about a guy that phones the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department and records him phoning them, asking to buy drugs.
Right.
From them.
Right.
And the receptionist and the staff that he gets put through and all that kind of stuff. It was really quite funny, but it was quite vulgar, the language he was using. So
yeah.
You have to be careful. You have to approach that with a certain amount of caution, because it was a bit a bit rich at time. Anyway, thank you very much for joining me as usual. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on and read through all that for me. Hope you got everything sorted out outside.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Good. Excellent. So I'll let you go. What have you got planned? Because you are now.
It's 4:30.
Yeah, 4. So you've still got the rest of the afternoon and the evening to go. What's your plans now?
Yeah.
Some more videos?
Possibly. We'll see.
Possibly. Yeah. Okay.
It might be about Scottish independence, but anyway.
Why would you want to talk about that? That's one of the things that the COVID has really made a difference, is the fact that it's sort of like
don't mistake your very, very classy politicians in the SNP putting aside their zeal for independence for the time being to mean that they no longer care about it. Those two things are not the same. I can. Yeah, I know. But it's just that everything gets put on hold, doesn't it? You know, right? It kind of does. But like I say, even when I listen to Nicola or Ian, talking, and they're saying, "Look, independence is a side issue. It's a back burner issue. That's not the thing. Right now, we're dealing with what's on the ground." And that's just them being classy politicians doing what's right for the people that they represent. So that's awesome. But doesn't mean that they've forgotten. It's still going to be there when COVID passes over. I'll tell you what else, folks, since you asked, Paul, since you had to push the issue, Paul, all the independence marches are getting obviously canceled over in Scotland. But what they are brilliantly doing is they're going to do a similar thing like we did with Mammothon, where they're going to have an online event on April 4th for the Arbroath Independence March, where it's going to be all going to happen online, where the virus can't be transmitted through virtual chat rooms and things like that. So now they're taking their demonstrations online. So it's not going away. It's still there. People care about it, and people still think in Scotland there's still a great deal of people who think Westminster's got its head up its rear end, but they're putting that aside for now because obviously COVID's a little more important. So let's not get it twisted.
Okay. That's me nearly finished my last bottle of Abbott Ale. So
oh man, see, now you got to go to the store and risk more contamination to get another bottle.
I tried to buy 3 of my favorite Shepherd brew yesterday. 4 of them, sorry, and there was only allowed 3, and yet they've got plenty on the shelf. But this is their policy; you only allowed 3.
Oh yeah, they're keeping people from buying everything out, right? Anyway, 3 wasn't enough, dude.
No, I wanted 4.
All right,
this is terrible. This rationing.
Those are large bottles of hard alcohol, dude. I mean, yeah. Whew. Maybe slow down a touch.
Anyway. Because of the lack of beer, I've had to have a little smoky
dram
at the same time. Yeah,
dram.
This is the smoky black by Famous Grouse. It's there. I would say it's an imitation of a Lafroig.
Bob asks if that is single malt.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
There you go, Bob. It's single malt.
I think so.
Not anyway. Blended.
Oh well, I'm gonna say it's Famous Grouse. They're not the most expensive stuff you can get. To be honest, I would say the old Pulteney, particularly the really good old Pulteney is very nice.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to get some of that, You'll sometimes
That one
see,
gets a mention on Still Game when Jack and Victor go to the tasting.
yeah,
One of the guys that's there with them at the tasting, he brings up the old Putney, grabs the bottle. He's, I'd rather like this stuff, and he's like doing a little commercial for it right there. It's funny.
yeah.
So, but yeah, so it even gets talked about in Still Game.
A couple of years ago, I think I've mentioned this before. Me and Eunice at Hogmanay, we were up in Speen Bridge. That's past Fort William, past Ben Nevis.
Yeah.
You know, so we're right in the Highlands, you know.
Right.
And I was gigging on the Hogmanay night, and then Hogmanay day, they had the whiskey tasting, but I was playing at night, so I didn't take part in any of the whiskey tasting.
Right.
But Eunice did, you see. And she got absolutely, as you can imagine, because I said to the owner of the hotel, I said, I do apologize for not taking part in the whiskey testing, but with me playing tonight, you know, I thought it best to abstain. And he said, oh, don't worry about it, Paul, your wife's made up for you.
Mm-hmm.
Then we were back up a couple of years later when same gig, same setup. This time, though, no gig on New Year's Day in the evening, so was able to enjoy the whiskey tasting. And I kid you not, it was 6 of these large glasses of whiskey that we had to taste, and you had to try and identify the whiskey. You know, that's part of the fun of it. You know,
right.
Well, we were sat at this table, and there was about 10 people at this table. 9 or 10 people at the table, and when they only needed to sniff the Lefroy, and it was like, nah, don't like that. So they all gave it to me because Eunice had already taken one sniff and said, oh no, I'm not having that. You can have that. So I mean, I must have had about 10 Lefroys that plus. Well, I think
plus your lot. Right.
Well, I think when it came to the old Pulteney, Eunice tasted that and said, oh, that's old Pulteney. And I said, well, fair enough. Then you can have that one of mine, you know. But yeah, I was. I ever since then, I've always liked the Lefroy. But this is, this is famous grouse, smoky black.
Yes.
I don't know if it is a single, but certainly the old Pulteney is very, very good. So if you ever get a chance for that, yeah, you'll sometimes see it in the airports as you go through. If you ever come, you ever fly to Edinburgh?
Yeah, well, not anytime soon, Chief. LAX is a ghost town.
Well, I mean, are there any planes flying now?
That's what I mean. There's a few, not a lot.
No.
I saw one plane landing, no planes in the air. I heard one plane taking off while I was down that way. So, yeah, not a lot.
And you've also got a train that runs nearby.
There's a train that runs along. Well, there's several trains now in LA. Got several different versions of the metro line. You got green, blue, silver. I believe there's a yellow line. Anyway, you got various lines of the train. But yeah, there's one that goes down the 105 freeway. That's the green line. It goes down the center of the freeway. And so basically it goes from the airport to where the 105 freeway stops over basically at the 605, which is kind of when you're getting to the east end of LA, really. So,
I mean, sometimes when you're doing a video, we sometimes hear the train.
That's a different train that's nearby here, but yeah, that one runs as well. That's a freight train.
So are they all still running? Oh, well, I suppose a freight train can still be running, can't it?
No, freight trains are still running. I even saw a passenger train the other day. So,
right.
An Amtrak train. So,
okay.
I wouldn't get on a train myself, as I explained in my video earlier today. I was talking about the train that runs down the 105 as I was showing how clear the freeway was. I was talking about that train. I was going to be getting back on that train this week if it wasn't for Corona. I had intended to switch back to riding the train again.
Yeah.
And but because of this, and I wanted to be able to travel safely to and from work without being at a risk of being in a group of people where I could potentially get contaminated, I decided to drive and be kind of self-quarantined in my own car, as it were, while I travel to and from work. So
interesting. One of the things that Eunice shared on her Facebook page earlier today was the fact that one of the chief medical officers here in Scotland, or might be the UK, has pointed out that from their research, it would seem that quite a common way of of contracting the disease is when filling up at a filling station.
Oh,
is to not protect your hand against the nozzle that somebody else has just used.
right.
Because they're investigating to see, well, how does it still spread? So this is one of them. So just be wary. I saw you had your big glove on that was like it made your hand look as like bigger than your head or something. So I think you need to wear that glove a bit more often when you're filling up. Okay.
Yeah, right.
Because I know that you drive one of these big V8 things, that does like 20 to the gallon or something.
Yeah, not the best gas mileage.
Well, yeah. a lot better when they clear the roads for you.
Oh, yeah. There hardly burned any gas today, dude. It was like I was doing the maximum speed limit the whole way. It was pretty wild.
Yeah,
eerie feeling. So you guys can go check out the video I did earlier today.
Absolutely.
Hop over to my channel and check it out if you want. It shows. I kind of showed how empty the shopping and restaurant district down in Manhattan Beach, what it's looking like. And normally on a Saturday morning, it would be hopping and just like mobbed with people. And it was like a ghost town. So I showed a lot of different things in that video this morning. So go check that out. And I have heard that any metal and even plastic surface that this thing can live for 3 days.
Yes, 72 hours. Yeah.
So, and now I would say anything that's in direct sunlight would probably not have that problem. I would think if it has direct sunlight on it, that the direct sunlight would probably be able to take out corona. Obviously, we'll need the scientists to verify that, but I would say that's a pretty likely scenario. So
that reminds me, by the way, you did a video about the coronavirus, like a live chat about it. And you mentioned something, and I thought, not sure about that. You said about the fact that the kids are going to be prime ones for spreading it.
Well, they would have been if you don't close your schools.
Well, yeah, but I went to some of my pupils on Thursday, and the first one I went to, the little girl, she's 12 years old, P7, coming up for 12. Her hands through washing literally were red across the knuckles.
I'm not saying no kids keep clean. I'm not. But when you're on the playground, you're interacting. You're whatever. I mean, kids are sharing germs, dude. It happens.
Mm-hmm.
They're interacting a lot and in close quarters.
Well, not these kids. The amount of washing of their hands that they're having to do.
Okay. It sounds like you go and visit all the posh kids. So okay.
Anyway, I thought I'll speak up for my little pupil who's gone through hell the last at least week and a half.
So they shut down all the major sporting events too. Does that mean that adults don't know how to wash their hands? Is that what that's meant to suggest?
The good news is
all I'm saying is that kids exchange germs, dude, and contamination. They do it.
Yeah. I mean, they have shut down all the major sporting events, haven't they?
Yeah. Does that mean we as adults, no, it just means that they're doing what they got to do. They're doing what they got to do to prevent groups of people getting together and passing corona around so that they can then leave that group and take it to new groups.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea here.
That's right. But the good news is that, and I'm sure that Sharkbait will be absolutely delighted about this, because you know that the Aussie Rules football season has just kicked off. Yeah. And
not kicked off.
Oh, it has.
Yeah.
Yeah. You remember when we were at Marvel Stadium?
But you can only watch it on TV?
Yeah. You remember when we were at the Marvel Stadium?
Yes.
And he pointed out that the other stadium is the MCG, the Melbourne Cricket Ground, which is a huge venue.
Yeah.
They played. It was Richmond versus I'm going to say Carlton. Two of the top teams. The stadium was empty, so they're playing behind closed doors, so that at least the season starts. And then she'll, and then the season will pick up later on.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bob, I've had the same since Thursday. So luckily, because of knowing how StreamYards work, that's exactly what I've done. The fact that I can screen share and I can set up. Some of you might have noticed there's a video I've put out called Test, and it's there's nothing there, and that's just me being sort of StreamYards refer to like when Erekose joins me before we click on live, they term that as backstage. Now you can stay backstage indefinitely. It doesn't matter. You can just stay backstage. So that's what I've been doing, and it works really well because I can share my screen, and it comes up. The full screen is music that they've already got that I've sent to them. You know.
Right.
So yeah, it's not ideal. It's not ideal. Not
ideal maybe, but yeah, it'll help you get through this time. Right. It'll allow you to work from home and keep the bills paid a little. That's why I'm kind of happy. I'm kind of essential for people, and that I'm going to be able to kind of keep working through this. Because man, if I had to sit home for months, that would be death.
Yeah,
that would be absolute death. Screw Corona. I mean, it would be total just chaos for me if that happened. So I'm fortunate, I guess, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, in actual fact, here in the UK, there apparently the government are going to put together packages of support for the people who, well, some of them are on the zero contracts. You know, the people that work in pubs and restaurants and stuff like that, and bars.
Right.
You know,
Hospitality industry is really taking a hit. Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, that's mean gigs that. Gigs that I should have done Friday night. I should have had one couple of weeks time down in Annan, both cancelled, and I'm not optimistic about the one at the beginning of May. But who knows?
Right. All right, dude. Well,
I think Bob's asking about this. I'll check it out, and then he's put cost us a lot of dollars. I don't know if you're meaning that the StreamYard or the.
He's saying
the fact that all
video lessons,
all bar gigs cancelled. Yep. But yeah, check out the StreamYards. It's very simple. Whoever's hosting a StreamYards, all they do is send a link, so the other person doesn't even have to have an app on their phone or their laptop or anything. They just click on the link. And they just come straight in via
the World Wide Web.
Yeah, and you can you put your name on the on the setting, and you can even add a little picture of yourself, can't you? What's your avatar?
My avatar, Erekose.
Yeah. Well, listen, let me show you mine. Yeah, but you can show us. I've got.
Oh, I see.
I've got my new one.
There you go. I don't have
one yet. Do you know who that is?
Some old dude that played the accordion.
That's right. Yeah. Rather appropriate. Yeah, J.S. Bark.
Ah.
What does yours look like?
I don't have one. You're not listening?
Do you not?
Yeah. Clear the crap out of your ears, Haver. I don't have one. I already said that.
Do you not?
Alrighty, folks. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe. We'll see you.
Cheers, dude. And he was gone. He wanted to get the last word.